What's up, guys? I just wanted to give you a 1-year ownership update of my 2021 Mazda 3 Turbo Hatchback all-wheel drive premium preferred, whatever. It's the top one with the red leather. So let's go for a drive and I'll tell you all about the last year. Okay, so starting off in my 2021 Mazda 3 Turbo Hatchback all-wheel drive. I have put about 8,300 miles on this thing in the last year, so not a whole lot, but definitely enough to know what this thing is like to live with. And I still stand by my first impressions video, the review that I did several months ago, and in saying that this is definitely one of the best daily drivers that you can buy today. This is such a good value, and just for the money, I mean, I think this I paid just over 34 grand for this car, and I think it's an exceptional value. And I know that probably a lot of like BMW and Audi shoppers probably aren't going to cross shop with the Mazda 3 Turbo Hatchback, but this is kind of what that feels like. You know, I've been in several BMWs and Audis as of late, and this thing feels just as nice as a lot of those like more entry level, you know, German luxury brands. And I've really loved this car. I've really enjoyed it. Some of the best things about this car is the styling. I think is wonderful. I think the exterior styling just definitely doesn't look like really anything else on the road. I love the long nose and the long hood. I love the lower lip. I love how it just kind of juts out. And the front, like this car, like from the front view, looks so cool and so aggressive, especially with all the blacked out trim pieces. It's just awesome. Like, I just think it looks phenomenal. Some other things that I really love about it. The gas mileage is better than I expected. I usually average about 28, 29 miles to the gallon. I've gotten as high as 31 before. I have not taken this on any road trips, but just driving this as like my commuter, daily driver, I get pretty close to 30 miles to the gallon. The luxury is pretty amazing. The tech is pretty well done. There are some annoying things with the tech. I think the adaptive cruise control is too sensitive, and I wish you could just disable it completely. Maybe you can. I've dug through the menus, and I don't think there's a way to. I just want normal cruise control. So I find myself like turning it off pretty frequently, like when I'm using cruise control, then someone comes in front of me. I just hate that my speed is being dictated by the person in front of me. So that's something that I just haven't really loved. Some other kind of just minor tech annoyances. The chime for like the seat belt is incessant, and it's pretty annoying. And so again, something I wish that you could just disable. You probably can. I just haven't really looked that hard into it, but something to be aware of nonetheless. Another minor annoyance of the Mazda 3 Turbo is the use of piano black trim. It got scratched pretty much on day one, and I don't know why automakers continue to use it. I mean, it looks good, but if you buy one of these, I would strongly recommend getting like PPF, some paint protection film, put on the piano black. Otherwise, like literally within seconds of ownership, it's going to get scratched. And that also goes for the plastic on the gauge cluster up here. You know, just even dusting it off has, you know, with my soft microfiber towels, has even created scratches in that. So some of those materials, like, I don't love the glossy and the plastics that they've chosen in here, because they do seem to scratch pretty easily. So another thing that has been kind of frustrating is the battery. Now, this hasn't really been a serious issue. I've never had the battery run out. But what I found is, like, when I'm vacuuming it or have a door open for even just a few minutes, the car will start chiming at me incessantly that the battery is low. And this happened like shortly after I first bought it. And I'm like, how is the battery, almost dead? That's so weird. And so I took it to the dealer, and they were like, yeah, we're aware of it. We're not sure why these Mazda 3s do that, but they do. And so when that's happened, I'll just like go and drive the car around the neighborhood for, a few minutes, and it's fine. So I've never had it die on me, but just be aware if like you're vacuuming or you've got the doors open for a little while, you're probably going to get a pretty annoying chime and a warning on the center screen in the gauge cluster telling you that your battery's a little low. Now, to address the elephant in the room, on a lot of the forums and Facebook groups that I'm a part of with this car, there have been some reports of oil consumption. I have not experienced that at all. This has been totally problem-free. No excess oil consumption. I do go get the oil changed regularly, right on schedule, and I've never had a problem with it. So I know that some people have had that problem, and some people are kind of freaked out about it. But I mean, this is a fantastic car, and Mazda's a good company. If it is a huge problem, I'm sure that they'll do, they'll make right by it. I was talking with the owner of Bountiful Mazda here in Utah, MJ. He's a great guy, and he's like, look, if anything, if it does get to be serious, like Mazda's going to take care of their customers. They'll fix the problem. If they need to, they'll replace the engine. But from what I can tell, only like a very small percentage of people have actually had a problem with it. And most of those people, as far as I know, when they've had the warning of low oil, they just add more, and they like sometimes it's just a one-time problem, and they never have it again. And so, no, I have not experienced that problem, and I feel very confident driving this around. It's really well constructed, and so anyway, those are my thoughts on the oil consumption, issue that's out there for some owners. A couple other very small, I'm trying to be as comprehensive as I can. A couple other small, little annoyances, and I'm talking small, like these are not deal breakers, guys. I very much stand by that this is one of the absolute best daily drivers that you can buy. Anyway, back to my annoyances. So the screen here, the infotainment screen, two things with it. It does very, very slightly rattle. And it's only on certain roads. Like it's almost like a little buzz more than a rattle. Okay, you can hardly hear it. Sometimes it does it, other times it doesn't. It just depends on the kind of road you're on. But that is something to be aware of. I have read that that's a fairly common issue for these infotainment screens in these Mazdas. If they do rattle just a little bit. Another thing with the infotainment that just barely started happening, that I've also read is a common thing, and yet not a big deal, is it just started like rebooting kind of on loop, like every 10 seconds or so. And so I looked into it, and turns out like the SD card for the navigation that's plugged here in the center console underneath the armrest can just go bad. And so I removed it, I took it out, and it's no longer rebooting. The issue's solved. And so I'm just going to swing by the dealer and go get a new SD card, and it should be just fine. Okay, so that kind of sums up my annoyances or just complaints after a year of ownership. Let me just highlight a couple other things that I've really loved about driving the Mazda 3 Turbo hatchback on a daily basis. One of the things that I'd first like to mention is the sound system. This Bose stereo, I know Bose makes good stuff like across the board. I've been a Bose fan for a long time, but for some reason this Bose stereo that they have here is just so good. Like it's even better than most of the other Bose stereos. Like I was in the Honda Civic recently touring that had a Bose stereo, and it sounded good, but it sounds even better in here. Can't even really nail down why, but I've really liked it. It's just a phenomenal sounding stereo. And if you're wondering, if you're apprehensive about the infotainment and the dial instead of the touchscreen up here, I will say this: I think it's pretty intuitive and easy to get used to. I spent a week in the new Mazda CX-5, and I was also in the CX-50 recently. And the CX-50 was better, but the CX-5, you kind of have to like reach like straight down the console and almost back a little bit to like you put your hand on the dial, which is smaller than it is in here. But this dial, like it's like right there. If you're resting your arm on the center console, center armrest, it's just right there, like for your fingertips. And so it's super easy to access, super easy to control. And I honestly don't mind it. Like, I mean, touchscreens are the cool thing right now or whatever, but using the dial it's been just fine. Another just slight annoyance that I haven't loved is the suspension. And while it is like it's good on most road surfaces, it is more stiff than you would expect. I do wish it was like that. You can probably tell like that. It's just a little more stiff than you're expecting. Like this feels like, I don't know, like it should be, it's better, it'd be more suited to like a more sporty vehicle. And while this is sporty, I mean, you can definitely have a lot of fun in this, especially in sport mode. And there's a lot of power and especially torque here. I'm not in love with the suspension. Because I'm daily driving this and it's my commuter, I wish the ride was just a little bit softer, a little more just plush and comfortable. But it's not all the time. It's just over like bumps like you just saw. Like it just can be a little harsh. Another great thing that I've really enjoyed about this Mazda 3 is it's all-wheel drive. And this thing handles really well. I mean, you can toss it into some corners. I'm not going to pretend that it's a sports car. But I mean, you can have fun with it. It handles well. It does a great job of keeping the grip down, especially in the snow. Last year, we had some really crazy and icy storms here in Salt Lake, and I usually have to get to work really early. I'm usually there by 6 a.m., and which is sometimes before like the roads and the freeways are really very well cleared off. And so I have snow tires. I bought Blizzaks for it. I always buy Blizzaks for my cars, even if they have all-wheel drive. Mainly because, well, I love the added security that they offer. Tires are amazing, guys. We really don't need all-wheel drive all that often if you have snow tires, but with my schedule being so weird, having snow tires and all-wheel drive gives me a lot of peace of mind. And so that's why I usually do that. Anyway, I remember I was on the freeway and it was super icy, and there were so many slide-offs. Like I counted over 20 slide-offs on the way to work one morning, and this thing with snow tires was like rock steady. It's lower center of gravity, snow tires, the all-wheel drive. It did so good. Like if you have to commute in the winter months, you're gonna love this thing. Another observation that I've had in my year of ownership is just how much this feels like a diesel car. At first, I didn't like notice it that much, but years ago, I owned a 2013 Volkswagen, or was it a 2011? I can't remember at this point. I think it was a 2013. Yeah, Volkswagen Golf TDI, and that was a great car. I know like Dieselgate and all that stuff, but it was a seriously great car, and really enjoyed it. And it's kind of funny. This doesn't feel all that far off to how that felt as far as like power delivery. I mean, this thing only redlines at like 6,500 RPM, which isn't like terribly low, but it's also not super high, and it usually short shifts around like 5,000 RPMs. And so you're getting a lot of torque on the low end, and which is a lot of fun, and it just kind of feels like a diesel. So, and I've always put premium in this, by the way. If you put premium in this, you have a lot more horsepower. I think with regular gas, you're rated at 227 horsepower. And I believe with premium, the rating goes up to 250 horsepower. And then the torque also jumps up to 320 pound-feet of torque. And that's quite a bit in this little hatchback. And it's definitely a lot to have fun with. So I always put premium in it. It's only just a little bit more money. And hopefully it, even helps the engine a little bit too. Something I wish that the Mazda 3 Turbo had was ventilated seats. These are perforated seats. The leather feels good. I really love this red leather, by the way. This was like one of the main selling points for me. This with the polymetal gray exterior. I think looks just really, really sharp, especially with all the blacked out trim. But I feel like, you know, for $1,000 more or whatever, like, I'd be willing to pay a little bit more for some ventilated seats. And these just get a little bit toasty in the summer. They're not bad, but just, I mean, it feels so luxurious anyway. It would just be a cool, like, nice option to have just for a little bit more money. Okay, so to wrap up this video and to give you some final thoughts on my ownership experience of the Mazda 3 Turbo Hatchback all-wheel drive, I think this is a wonderful car, and I've really liked it. I wonder how long I'll keep it. I usually turn over my cars every year or so, but as everybody knows right now, it's a little tough to find cars, and so I didn't really have anything to replace it with, so for the time being, I'm just going to keep it. I've really enjoyed it. I really don't have any like serious complaints that are deal breakers for me. Now, and since I made my last video, I have spent a good amount of time in other similar vehicles, and I'll especially call out the new Honda Civic. And the new Honda Civic is very, very good. And the closest one that would be comparable to this would probably be the Honda Civic Touring, which gives you all their luxury stuff. And it is only front-wheel drive. You do get a lot less power. And I think that one was priced at like 32 grand. And so I built one of these brand new the other day online, the Mazda 3 Turbo. And so this is about 4 grand more than the Honda Civic. And this is all-wheel drive, gets a lot more power. It's way more luxurious. It has more tech, and it's a hatchback and all that stuff. And so I do think that this is still an excellent value, even at like $35,000 or $36,000. It is a little bit smaller than probably what you're expecting with the back seat. I can put my kids back there just fine. Like, and the 4 of us can go and drive around and everybody's happy. But just know that it is going to be tighter than something like the Honda Civic. I think it's probably about the same as the current Toyota Corolla, but anyway, just know that it's probably going to be a little bit tighter. But I think for 35, 36 grand, that definitely isn't cheap, but I do feel like this is a great value for the power, the all-wheel drive, the styling, the luxury, the tech, everything that you're getting. Really, I just wish it had ventilated seats and wireless Apple CarPlay. I think the brand new Mazda 3 Turbos have the wireless Apple CarPlay, but this one still is wired. But that's okay. It's not a big deal. Anyway, so I know this is a long video. I wanted to be as comprehensive as I could on my 1 year of ownership and 8,300 miles that I've put on this Mazda 3 Turbo. And let me just say one more thing too. A lot of guys online will want to modify this because it's, you know, they want to make it into like a Mazdaspeed kind of hatchback, and that's just not what this is. This isn't the Mazda 3 hatchback of old. That's just kind of like, you know, rip you to shreds and light your hair on fire. Those things were a lot of fun. I would think of this as an excellent, you know, compact daily driver with like so much torque. Like, just look at that. That's crazy. And that you can have a lot of fun with. But I wouldn't say that this is like intentionally a sporty vehicle. This is a vehicle that can be sporty, but also just transport you in comfort and security, you know, to work and just around town. Again, I just wish the suspension was a little bit softer. So anyway, I hope this helps you. I hope anybody that watches this, if you want to message me or comment below, please do, and I'll be happy to discuss anything further if you have extra questions or other questions. And as always, guys, I really appreciate you subscribing. And until the next time, we'll see ya.